More today from Adam Silver on the Clippers investigation. Welcome into Clippers Talk.
Here we go, Clips fans.
Clippers talk with Adam Osland. After every game, download every pod. Clippers talks the name. He's a basketball talking golden god.
New episodes after every game on demand.
Follow Clippers Talk wherever you get your podcasts. Clippers.
Good to be with you guys. I'm Adam Osland. This is Clippers Talk. You can also find this in podcast form wherever you pod. It's that red logo you just saw if you're watching on the YouTube side. Punk's Gone Wrong already in here. Just dropped the link a second ago. We'll wait for some people to get in, but Adam Silver spoke a little bit earlier today. We're going to get to that and catch you up on the latest from The Athletic, an article that came out last Friday. But Dan Roberts, editor-in-chief of Front Office Sports, just spoke with Adam Silver about an hour ago. We'll go through everything pertaining to the Clippers that he was asked about. Now, going back to last Thursday's episode, if you missed it, I highly encourage you checking out that episode. Some people felt like I was too down. Maybe I was lethargic. Maybe I sounded a little bit tired. Maybe it was other stuff going on in the world. And I did speak to some of that at the very end of that episode. Take it or leave it. You don't have to listen to that part. It's the last 5 minutes. But I did want to address it because a few people said I sounded defeated last episode. And while I spoke about this on Clips and Dip on Friday, I just want to reiterate, I'm not trying to sound defeated here. I have no idea what's going to come out of this. Should the Clippers be found innocent or guilty, what the penalties could be. But it is a little bit exhausting to continue to talk about this and not basketball. And yes, it's a little bit disheartening seeing the Clippers embroiled in controversy. I don't enjoy talking about all this stuff. So if I don't sound as chipper as you would like, I apologize. I'm trying to be honest and not try to put on a happy face for you just to make it seem like everything's fine. So before we get to Adam Silver, I want to go over some of the stuff we talked about on Friday on Clips and Dip that I didn't talk about last Thursday here on Clippers Talk, because I think there were some interesting excerpts, and this Athletic article by Mike Burkanov. Hope I'm not butchering that, probably am. But he spoke to a couple different things. First of all, remember on Thursday we talked about it was Dennis Wong, minority investor in the Clippers, who Pablo Torre said put in just under $2 million before Kawhi was paid $1.75 million 9 days later, as they were late on his quarterly payment of the $7 million per year. That was one of them. So, according to this article from The Athletic that came out on Friday, in December of 2022, Dennis Wong invested almost $2 million in Aspiration through DEA 88 Investment LLP. Days later, according to reporting by Pablo Torre, finds out Aspiration paid Leonard $1.75 million. 3 months later, according to court documents in a civil suit, Steve Ballmer invested $9.999 million in the company. Aspiration had been struggling financially with just $12.2 million in cash as of February 17th. So now we're in 2023. Quote, running through more than $2 million a week was Aspiration. The Clippers declined to comment on the March 2023 investment by Steve Ballmer of just under $10 million. Quote, it's unclear if Aspiration continued paying Leonard, who is listed as a creditor in Aspiration's bankruptcy filings, for $7 million, as are two companies representing the Clippers for a combined $50 million. Ballmer's 2023 investment was part of a fundraising round made up almost entirely of previous Aspiration investors, with Wong being the lone exception. According to The Athletic, the company hoped to raise $75 million in fresh money, but came up nearly $9 million short. A vast majority of the shares were bought up by Aspiration co-founder Joe Sandberg and Ibrahim Al-Hassini, another Aspiration board member. Sandberg later agreed to plead guilty to fraud charges brought by the Justice Department. Ballmer's first investment into Aspiration, a $50 million infusion alongside $265 million from Oaktree Capital, a prominent financial firm, came in December of 2021, 3 months after Aspiration signed a deal with the Clippers worth more than $300 million to be a founding sponsor of the team's new arena and its jersey patch partner. The Clippers also signed an agreement to pay Aspiration more than $50 million for carbon offsetting toward the goal of becoming carbon neutral, according to multiple sources briefed on the deal. Unquote. Here's what I find interesting about this. So what happened to the money almost perfectly matching the Kawhi contract? Because it no longer seems to do that. First it was, Ballmer put in $50 million. And Kawhi got $28 million over $7 million per year over 4 years, plus $20 million in stock options. That's $48 million. That's almost $50 million. What happened to that? Because that seemed to be a big part of the argument. So now we just ignore that part. And I may be wrong, but when Pablo was first going over this, I don't think he made it sound like it does here, where Steve Ballmer's $50 million to start here was an infusion alongside of $265 million from Oaktree Capital, a prominent financial firm. So what you're seeing here, and then what ends up happening later on with Ballmer once again trying to help them raise $75 million, but they came up $9 million short. It's a fundraising round, multiple people investing. So that reads a little bit differently to me than just, Ballmer put in money, Kawhi got money. Ballmer put in money alongside Oaktree Capital. Ballmer was a part of a fundraising round of investments then in 2023. I don't know. I think that's worth mentioning. It's not nothing to me. It's giving us a more well-rounded look of what's happening. I also found this interesting. Also from the Athletic article on Friday. Remember, at first, the deal sounded like with Kawhi and Aspiration that it was completely devoid of any idea of how he would promote the brand. But apparently there was verbiage on that, according to the new Athletic article that came out last Friday. Quote, while Aspiration executives initially traded ideas on how to incorporate Leonard in marketing campaigns, including in collaboration with Drake, a celebrity client and endorser, it never did so. One executive believed the famously laconic Leonard did not fit as a spokesperson. The contract specified that Leonard would, among other asks, participate in 1 8-hour day of production, 1 4-hour day of public relations, 2 1-hour community service events, 1 5-minute segment per week, quote, in conversation with the Clippers coach Ty Lue, unquote, while he sat out the 21-22 season recovering from an injury. Also, quote, 5 organic comments, likes, retweets as requested by Aspiration and 3 off-court projects. But the deal, which allowed Aspiration to terminate it for cause, or if Leonard was no longer playing for the Clippers, also gave Leonard sign off on the requests and allowed him to refuse to do anything not consistent with his beliefs. So a couple different things here. There's specificity to some of the stuff that they were looking into having him do. I understand he didn't end up doing any of this stuff, but this is quite the difference from, there was never anything planned for Kawhi. Nothing talked about, nothing in writing. And then also Aspiration could terminate the contract for cause. I just think we're starting to get a little bit more to the story here. It doesn't look, based on what came out on Friday, it doesn't look as one-sided as it initially did to me from Pablo Torre and his camp. That doesn't mean that the Clippers are fine and in the clear or anything like that, because also in that article from The Athletic, Andre Cherney, Aspirations co-founder and CEO until 2022, disputed that Leonard had a no-show contract. He said the beliefs clause is standard for celebrity endorsements and that the company would end the agreement if Leonard didn't perform on his end. Well, that's something different. Quote, in the months of discussion among our executives before signing the sponsorship, I don't remember conversations about the NBA salary cap, Cherney said. I signed the contract shortly before I submitted my resignation, but before I left, there were numerous internal conversations about the various things Aspiration was planning to do with Leonard once the 2022-2023 season began, including emails from the marketing team about their plans in just the week before my last day. I can't speak to what was done or not done after I left or why. Now, Aspiration's former chief legal officer, chief technology officer, and chief financial officer, who had reported directly to Cherney, issued a joint statement sent to The Athletic on Saturday. A day after the story's initial publication, Pablo Torre found this. Responding to Cherney's quote, they said that the Leonard deal was delivered to the company already completed and that they pushed back against it and that it was not reviewed how other similarly sized transactions were. Quote, the team expressed concerns at the time regarding the high cost of the agreement and its lack of alignment with Aspiration's brand and business, unquote. The three Aspiration executives said in a statement shared with The Athletic, quote, while subsequent marketing efforts were undertaken, they were ultimately discontinued and should not be interpreted as support for the deal itself. In our judgment, the Leonard deal was not in the company's best interest. It was strategically difficult to justify then, and it remains so today. So at first we're hearing from Cherney that he made it sound like it wasn't a no-show deal. Then guys under him pushed back against that they had their own questions about it. Quote, it was strategically difficult to justify then, and it remains so today. Who do you want to believe there? As for Kawhi, John Hollinger wrote this regarding the NBA's broad latitude of punishments that they could hand down. John Hollinger talked about voiding Kawhi's contract would be problematic for the NBA, and voiding his contract while making sure the Clippers retain the cap hit is an unlikely endgame. Quote, which takes us to the biggest, ugliest, most confounding part of this, the possibility of voiding Leonard's contract. This is the most direct penalty available given the violation, but unfortunately, it's also the most problematic for the rest of the league. Could they leave the $50 million on the Clippers' 2027 cap and still void the contract? Amazingly, for a document of this size, the exact mechanics of how this works aren't clearly spelled out. I'm guessing he's talking about the CBA bylaws. And the definitions in Article 1 of the CBA don't include void contract as an entry. Opposing teams are surely rooting for this penalty, but to me, that seems an unlikely endgame. It's basically double jeopardy, giving the Clippers the cap hit without the player. Unquote. That's John Hollinger. All this to me is getting more complicated and convoluted by the day to the point where I'm thinking about no longer covering it. It's getting so far out into the weeds. However, when Adam Silver talks about it, I feel like it has to be covered. So I'll give this to you guys. This came out with Dan Roberts, editor-in-chief of Front Office Sports, just a couple of hours ago on stage with Adam Silver, and these are all the parts of the interview that relate to the Clippers. I'll share the screen.
Let's talk about the Clippers and Kawhi and aspiration and this $28 million endorsement deal, $300 million sponsorship deal that this company had with the team. You guys have announced an investigation. These things take a long time. But meanwhile, there's a slow drip or maybe a quick flood of additional news all the time. My old Time Inc. colleague, Pablo Torre, has been
I would say it's a fire hose right now of information that is out there. It is a lot to digest. Just tried to go over some of it. Hope that was clear enough.
quick flood of additional news all the time. My old Time Inc. colleague, Pablo Torre, has been reporting on this a lot. Where do things currently stand? And as each piece of information comes out, how do you assess it all?
Number one, I'd say in almost all the investigations we've done since I've been at the NBA, certainly the bigger ones, the media plays a large part in them. As we are seeing in this investigation here, it began with Pablo and his podcast. This was not something that was on our radar to even be thinking about, and whether it should or shouldn't be. And when this concludes, we'll take a fresh look at our rules in terms of companies that players are investing in and owners. We have rules now. We have lines, but there's not a complete prohibition. It's based on the amount each owns in those entities. So, but the values are getting much higher. The world's getting more complicated. Those are things that we're going to look at. But one of the things that in some ways we're the beneficiary in these investigations when they become public. Pablo, for example, has numerous anonymous sources. Some of them may choose to come forward. Some of them may choose to speak to other media outlets. Some may choose to be on the record. There are some new.
My understanding is it's not like the NBA has subpoena power where they can force anybody to talk during this investigation.
Example has numerous anonymous sources. Some of them may choose to come forward. Some of them may choose to speak to other media outlets. Some may choose to be on the record. There are some news organizations that pay for news content. But I'm just saying in some of our investigations, they've been broken because people have chosen to sell video and do other things there. So that media coverage becomes part of the investigation. So the drip you reference, sure, we have, right down the street from Wachtell, that does our investigations. They follow the news as well. It doesn't mean that obviously that we take at face value anything we hear, see, or read. That's what the investigation is for. And in some ways, the tactics they follow are not all that different than often what an investigative reporter would do. On the other hand, government has ultimate power that we don't have to subpoena, et cetera, in investigations.
There you go. I hadn't reviewed this video yet, by the way.
Government has ultimate power that we don't have to subpoena, et cetera, in investigations, but we have certain league powers, certainly over anyone who is an actor within the league, a player, an owner, a team, et cetera. When you sign up to be an owner in this league, you acknowledge that you are going to comply, as Steve Ballmer has said he is, and is fully complying, but whether it's your emails, your texts, or whatever else, internal documents. So yes, this investigation will take time. We want to be as completely thorough as possible, and it's my sense from being involved in these things in the past, we will get to the bottom of this. These are real people out there who did whatever deals they did. My sense is that we will bring whatever resources we need to bear on this investigation. I don't know anything more yet, as I've been very public about. It's not just because Steve Ballmer is an owner in the league. I'd be saying this about anybody who's accused of anything. I'm a lawyer. I believe in due process. I believe in fairness. And so we will be thorough, but we will begin with a presumption of innocence, not a presumption of guilt, is what I keep reading about. And then we will follow the facts.
That part there, obviously very important, not exactly groundbreaking, but when he talked last Thursday at the Board of Governors meeting, which is why I did that episode, or it was last Wednesday, but I did this show on Thursday, he said, quote, "Our investigators look at the totality of the evidence. If there was the mere appearance of impropriety, I would be hesitant to act. If there was the mere appearance of impropriety, I would be hesitant to act." Well, circumstantial evidence could be mere appearance, could be interpreted as that. And the bylaws say circumstantial evidence is enough especially if something can't be rationally explained away where this money is coming from. But maybe the burden of proof is higher than we originally thought, because it's up to Adam Silver whether he wants to go for the direct or circumstantial. It's totally his discretion here.
I think what's hard for people to understand in all this, and, Ballmer has said, basically, I was hoodwinked. It was a fraudulent company, and this company, had executives that have been prosecuted, and it went bankrupt. He has said that. You have said you hadn't heard of Aspiration before, but a $300 million deal with the team, the team was going to be like a jersey patch sponsor. They had Aspiration on the back of the courtside seats. I think Pablo...
Just to be clear, I'm not sure if I said if I said I never heard of it, I meant in the context of the accusations here. I mean, I certainly was aware of the brand, but I didn't know anything about it.
Got it. Yes.
Okay. This is interesting. We have exactly what he said. This is what he said last Wednesday. I don't know how you reconcile these two things in the context of the brand. This is a tough one, I think, for Adam Silver here, because sure seems like he made it very clear he had not heard of Aspiration.
When the podcast came out, it was news to me. I'd frankly never heard of the company Aspiration before, and I'd never heard a whiff of anything around an endorsement deal with Kawhi or anything around engagement with the Los Angeles Clippers. So it was all new to me. I heard it. I saw some of the follow-up information.
It was all new to me. Now he's qualifying that answer about Aspiration. Just want to hear that part again.
Said you hadn't heard of Aspiration before, but a $300 million deal with the team, the team was going to be like a jersey patch sponsor. They had Aspiration on the back of the courtside seats. I think Pablo...
Just to be clear, I'm not sure if I said if I said I never heard of it, I meant in the context of the accusations here. I mean, I certainly was aware of the brand, but I didn't know anything about it.
Got it. Yes, because...
Okay.
I think just earlier today, Pablo tweeted, he said that because it was a $300 million deal, it was a founding sponsorship agreement. And those, as I would expect, have to be approved at the league level. So, I covered the wild and wacky cryptocurrency world for many years. And I think we all saw what happened with FTX. I mean, that company had its name on the Miami Heat arena. And they signed a 19-year stadium naming rights deal. And I remember thinking, how could a company that's only been around 2 years sign a 19-year deal? Surprise, it wasn't above board and the company went under and they had to remove the name. So I think it's just hard for people to believe that everyone involved was so, not aware of what this company was or wasn't.
Whoa. This is pretty hard-hitting question here.
Well, again, we got to do an investigation here. I'm saying I accept your earlier point, or what I was suggesting about whether we need to be thinking about the rules we follow here. I mean, we're not, we can hire outside law firms. We have some in-house investigators, but there are literally thousands of deals that cover all our teams. And I think, these are brands that have, major investors, major funds, et cetera. That was certainly clear of the crypto world at the time. And so, yes, there's a league approval process, but it doesn't go deep into, interviewing executives for every deal that comes through the league office.
Does it need to?
Well, I think that's a fair question, and maybe at a certain level they do. I think we'll have a better sense of when we understand what happened here, be honest, because, you could be asking me, I know your background is in crypto to a certain extent. Let's go back to those deals. Should we have been doing things we didn't do? And we're still, and now crypto's back up. We have deals with some of the crypto companies now, and now they're, the market's killing, going crazy on crypto.
This guy's up on his crypto prices.
No, I'm just, exactly. So is there a different view now? I'm just saying, we live in a market economy. There is a government that regulates these industries. There are teams and team owners, obviously, that are risking their reputations and brands. It's a larger ecosystem at play. And then you also have rights of players, because we collectively bargain certain limitations on players' abilities to invest in companies. I'll say right now, I mean, like reading sort of at least what's being, reported around Aspiration, and I certainly don't know anything at all about Kawhi's deal, whether it was show, no show. I just don't know, and we'll find all that out. But at least
Wisely sidestepping all this.
up till now, the greatest complaints have come from a combination of players and owners who don't like the fact that the league has placed limitations on companies that they can both be investing in because it feels unfair. It's in some cases, there are no commercial deals necessarily with team, but we're saying if an owner owns over 5% of this company, there's an absolute preclusion to players investing. So you have players saying, that's unfair. That's something I want to invest in. And you have players who are in deals and owners saying, wait a second, it's a big world. Everybody's investing in these companies just because I own this NBA team. So that's been historically, we've gotten complaints there. Now, as we see whatever happened here, and begin right now, just the appearance of issues becomes, of course, a brand issue for the NBA right now. And we may have to rethink those rules and think maybe there are even additional lines because I accept my responsibility ultimately is the integrity of this league. And especially when it's a competitive issue. I mean, we've had other larger investigations, but be honest, even when it involves misconduct of owners, it doesn't get fans' attention of 30 teams in the way something does where there's a suggestion there's an unlevel playing field, that somebody has a greater advantage because they have deeper pockets or they have a relationship or a connection. And I think from a fan standpoint, look, I'm never going to be in a position where I can sit here and say, I can promise nothing untoward's going to happen in the league, but what we do want to pledge to our fans is that from a league office standpoint, we treat everybody the same. As I said, we respect due process. We're going to be fair to everyone involved, whether it's a team executive, an owner, or a player, but that we care deeply about competitive fairness in this league. And that's what this issue potentially touches on, which is, I think, why in part it's getting so much attention.
I think that cuts to the heart of what Adam Silver's tenure as commissioner is all about. He wants to do away with the conspiracy theories from the 90s and early 2000s of the league is catering to the Lakers. I mentioned before, David Stern gets asked, hey, what's your dream finals matchup? Oh, the Lakers versus the Lakers. He wants everybody to feel like they're involved and they have just as good of a chance regardless of your market. So making sure there's fairness and a level playing field, that is top priority for him. But regarding the league having to approve of these deals, and it says in the bylaws, quote, founding sponsorship agreement must be submitted prior to its execution for NBA's approval and shall not be effective or enforceable until it is expressly approved by the NBA, unquote. Just guessing sponsorships and endorsements and naming rights stuff is going to be a little bit more vetted than it has been in the past, given what happened here and with Miami Heat. Just a guess. But the whole part is very confusing with Adam Silver saying, sure seemed like he said, you know what, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I played it for you. Sure seemed like he wasn't aware of Aspiration, and now he is, but he wasn't aware of it in that context. You saw the video. That part was interesting to me. But this was the extent of what we got today that was new and maybe not that riveting from Adam Silver, but decided to do a show here anyways and just keep you guys abreast of the situation, even though it's getting to the point that I feel like it's getting away from me, this story. And I kind of just want to say, I'm going back to talking basketball until they reveal their findings, because it's just getting too far out there. So we'll see. If there's stuff that I think is critical to the investigation, even if it's not the results of the investigation by the NBA. Pablo Torre says something else. Adam Silver says something else. Steve Ballmer talks with ESPN again. I'll bring you that stuff. But a lot of the back and forth stuff with Pablo and Mark Cuban, and seems like Pablo is taking this personally because he's staking his reputation on this and people are questioning him. So he's coming back hard with more and more evidence. I don't think it's going to stop. It ain't a slow drip to me. It has been like a fire hose over the last few days with some of the stuff that's come out. Just one thing after another, the Athletic article, and then Pablo getting the original CFO or COO or both to sign off on talking about what they felt about the Kawhi contract, whether it was a no-show or not. It's just, I'm definitely getting out of my depth here talking about it to this point. You could say from episode 1 talking about this, I was out of my depth if you want. But I will try to be as accurate as possible and fair with the analysis. And when there is stuff that I find relevant enough for Clippers talk, I guess I'll be back here to speak on the NBA's investigation here. I'm Adam Osland. You've been listening to Clippers Talk.